Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
George Edward Robertson Stiles II, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Now, I gave your full name because there was something about a G-Rob and a J-Rob as we were walking in.
Yeah.
Normally, I would just say Rob Stiles. Welcome.
Right. Thank you.
But it's such an outstanding full name that I thought we should share it with the world.
Absolutely.
Or the 120 people that might listen.
Right. You got that many?
It depends on how we do tonight.
Okay. All right.
There's a lot of pressure on you.
Right.
So you grew up in Ashland.
I did.
And you may be a couple minutes older than I am, but I imagine we had similar experiences.
Absolutely. My dad grew up in Ashland, down Center Street on the way to Gwaltney Church.
Yep, just off the tracks.
Yeah, just off the tracks. Grew up on the farm there. And we lived, when he moved back to Ashland, we lived on Sneed Street, across the street from the ball fields, the Ashland Little League fields. And we moved from there when I was 1 over to Caroline Street, right over by the college.
Yep.
And we just sold that house to the college a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So the college was a big part of our life for many reasons. One, we were right there. My dad went there. Loved Randolph-Macon. We went to all the games. And
yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. And Randolph-Macon was our playground. They didn't have card key security systems back then. You could just walk in and run around.
Right.
And go in the gym. And we got kicked out of the gym quite a few times, but sometimes they'd let us stick around and play. So
I got to stay because my mom worked there.
Well,
but they always asked. And then eventually they got used to you.
Yeah.
So you were a hooligan. I was properly allowed to stay in there.
Okay. Yeah, I was a quiet hooligan. I didn't get caught.
No, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Play basketball, you run around on the fields all day long.
Yeah.
And I know you only lived there for the first year, but when you were on Sneed Street as a baby, when you say the ball field, you literally had football and baseball that shared space.
Yep.
And then the basketball was right across the street in the old War Memorial. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And our kids played basketball. Silent Rob
is here tonight.
Is here, and we coached some basketball together. I think we did in the War Memorial. I think we did. Yeah.
Was it carpeted still?
Yes, it was.
It was not carpeted when we were much younger, but they carpeted at some point. I guess it stayed carpeted.
When we were young, it was concrete.
Yeah, so. And you hit your head on concrete when you fell out. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Caroline, from the age of 1 until
24, when I graduated from college, and my dad said I couldn't come back home.
I had a similar conversation with my dad.
He gave me a couple $1,000s and said, "Go move in with your sister." I didn't have a job yet, so he's like, "This will tide you over until you get a job."
Your dad was a pretty well-known personality in town, as far as I remember. He always ran with a dog, and he always seemed to be a nice guy. And anyway, tell me about your dad.
My dad was a great man. I think he didn't start running until he was like 40.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was a smoker, and he stopped smoking and wanted to get healthy, I guess, and started running. And I remember he would go up to A&P and buy these, $5 shoes to run in. It's like, and finally he realized he's got to invest in some shoes.
Yeah, because $5 isn't going to last very long.
No. So he ended up being a New Balance man. But, he ran with our dog, Schultz, who was a Weimaraner. We got him. I named him Schultz after Sergeant Schultz.
You named him?
I did.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
On Hogan's Heroes, because I thought it would be cool for, anytime Colonel Klink went, Schultz, that he'd come running into the room or something.
It's a great show.
Right. Awesome show. So, so they were, they ran together regularly. And it's funny, back in those days, too, Schultz knew how to let himself out of the back door. All right?
Yep.
And he'd leave the house, and he'd make his rounds around town.
Okay.
He'd go over to the college, sit in some classrooms. He'd actually go to the German class and Weimaraners are German
Yeah,
dogs.
sure.
And he'd go in the German class and just lay down in the room.
Was it comforting to him to hear German?
Oh, no. I don't know. Then he'd get up and leave, and he'd go to the barber shop. They would give him some snacks or something, and then he'd go to the butcher at Cross Brothers.
Wow.
And, so he was
He knew how to navigate traffic.
He did.
Because
there wasn't as much traffic.
Well, but look, I'm a little bit younger than you, but we're about the same age, and I lost my first 2 dogs to cars in Ashland, one near the railroad tracks and one near the old 7-Eleven.
Yeah. Well, he eventually did get hit on 54. Didn't kill him, but he did get hit. But So, but getting back to Dad, just a great guy, loyal, loved Randolph-Macon, loved Ashland. Loved everything about it, and my parents got divorced when I was 13, and I stayed with him, and so we were bachelors through high school.
Because your siblings were out of the house.
My siblings were out of the house. My older sister was either finishing up or had already finished VCU arts, and my other sister Lisa was just starting college at the time. So we got real close. He was my best friend. And
hard not to when it's just the two of you, right?
Yeah. And but he was simple. I mean, simple guy. He taught us about the golden rule: treat people the way you want to be treated. Everybody's equal. It doesn't. Nothing else matters except the character and everything like that. So I learned a lot from him just watching him.
Yeah.
And how he dealt with people, and going to work with him, and he talked to the janitor the exact same way he talked to his boss.
Which is not necessarily everybody in Ashland, but there was a lot of that in Ashland.
Yeah. And he was a CFO, so
he could have ignored 80% of humanity if he wanted to.
If he wanted to, but he didn't, because that's not what he did. But so I was named after him. He's George Edward Robertson Stiles, the original, and he's named after his mother's father, whose last name was Robertson.
Ah, got it.
Okay. So when I was born, my grandmother, his mother, had already passed, and he was going to drop. I think he was going to drop George and just call me Edward Robertson, because it's a pain having 4 names.
Yeah, every legal document you got to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, filling out forms and stuff like that, especially when your first name isn't, or the name you go by isn't your first name.
Right.
So but his sisters talked him into, Dad was the youngest, so his sisters talked him into keeping the name the same, so because they thought Mother would have loved that. So and then we passed the handle on to our oldest son. So, but
the whole thing.
The whole thing. And
so
he goes by George.
He's
the third.
Okay.
He goes by George. But the story goes, when I was born and Dad was getting the birth certificate ready, the nurse or whoever was helping with that said, "Well, this boy should be Junior," and Dad's like, "Nope, he's a second. I don't want him to be Junior." Well, he should be Junior. So they went back and forth a little bit.
Why did the nurse care?
Exactly. And Dad said, "That boy's going to be Junior over my dead body. You put the second down there, and that'll be it." So we went, and I thought because Dad was Ned after Edward, I was Rob after Robertson. So we gave George a first name.
Oh, nice.
But So, and it was funny because first day of school, my name was always George. And so people would laugh. They go, "George, whatever. What's that name?" So I always thought it was kind of a funny name. I didn't, because people
back in the
laughed at it.
60s, 70s.
Yeah, people laughed at it because it wasn't how they knew me. And but then when I thought about other people named George, famous people named George, I'm like, I've never questioned whether that name is a funny name or not. So we ended up sticking with that, and I'm glad we did.
Well, I mean, look, the first 2 names that pop into first 2 people that pop into my head that are named George, certainly George Washington, first president of our country, and I'm just a creature of TV from the 70s, George Jefferson is the other name.
I thought you might say George Patton.
George Patton's a solid name.
George Bush.
A lot of solid
Georges
out there.
A lot of solid Georges out there, no doubt.
And I'm sure your son likes
and George Jefferson. I don't want to take anything away from.
I mean, he was a funny dude. He was a great character.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so when you were not in school and you were not doing something that your parents wanted you to do, or your dad wanted you to do as a teenager, how were you spending your time besides running around Randolph-Macon? Or was that basically what you were doing?
No, probably when I was a teenager, we weren't doing that. It was probably, 13, 14 down was when I was over there. But I had friends. I mean, that was a great thing. I mean, we rode our bikes everywhere. It's funny because with my kids, I'm like, I'm not going to let them ride their bike all the way across town because I'm afraid they're going to get hit.
It's
on
scary.
54. Yeah,
it's scary.
It's just a different mindset. So I was more worried about them not being able to handle it than the drivers not being able to handle it. So,
right.
But, Scott Funk was a great friend of mine that grew up on Chapman Street, so I spent a lot of time over there. Spent a lot of time with Ramsey Longacre before he moved to Pittsburgh.
Is he still there?
He's still in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Yeah. We still stay in touch, and he's been back. He comes back, and we'll catch up and, get to see each other for a couple hours. And then, friends friends that lived out in the county, like Ted Schubert, the Campbells, Leslie Campbell, Hugh Campbell, Carter Flippo, David Knighton. In high school, my house was always the one we gathered at because it was in town.
Right.
Everybody else was coming in. So.
And there's a lot to do in that part of town, too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Not back then. It was. I brought back some memories coming down here. I'm not sure is it Independence?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Church
right.
Road?
Yep.
There used to be, when we were growing up, it was CC roads.
Okay.
And there was nothing. There was a few houses, that church and everything right there.
But it was country.
There was nothing, you'd go maybe half mile back, and then after that, it was nothing until the Wickham property.
Yep.
Well, we'd go back there and party all the time. That's where we'd go and drink. We'd go to CC Roads.
Are we talking about bonfires kind of thing, or you were not so obvious about it?
No, we didn't do bonfires because it was in the woods. We weren't out in the field, so we probably caught the whole thing on fire. But we'd go down there and, pregame, if we were going to a Patrick Henry football game or something like that. We'd have the beer bong out and, doing all that stuff. So a lot of memories going down that road. And go ahead.
You mentioned pre-gaming at Patrick Henry games. I remember being middle school, high school age, and I'm like, there are a lot of drunk kids at these games.
Oh yeah, a lot.
It is what it is. Yeah. Well, when I say that, I mean obviously Ashland has grown up some, but it's still pretty much the same town.
Yeah.
And being on Caroline, if you were Carter or one of the Campbell guys, you were in the middle of nowhere. There was a little more action in town, not a ton more, but a little more.
But that's where we gathered, and we would normally go. We normally went into Richmond to do anything, going to the Crystal Pistol or going to Young Virginians night somewhere or something like that.
I hope there are people listening to this that remember the Crystal Pistol.
Crystal Pistol, man. That place was great. So, we always complained about there wasn't anything going on in town. We always had to go somewhere else, to go to the movies, to whatever. And now, as a father, it's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise your kids.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's tremendous. So, and I don't think I really appreciated how special Ashland was. I mean, I knew it was special, and I loved it. But my first job, my second job, just a couple years out of college, I worked for the Virginia Municipal League insurance program. So I got to go around to all the small towns and cities. And so I got to see a lot of small towns in Virginia.
And there are a ton of them.
And there are a ton. And a lot of them are beaten down.
Yeah.
The downtown is dilapidated, boarded up. There were a few that weren't, but you saw a lot of them that were, and it just made me appreciate what we had here. So
I think a lot of that. Sorry, Rob.
No, that's okay.
A lot of that, the towns to the west of here and the towns to the south of here, I get why they struggle. Very agricultural. The town just existed to have some basic things going on for farmers. But so two things for us in Ashland. We benefited from being on the Richmond to D.C. corridor, and so there was just a lot of action there. And we had Randolph-Macon.
Yeah.
And I think those two are the reasons that Ashland's remained viable, at least in our lifetimes.
Do you remember when we got McDonald's?
The first one, right next to 95? I don't remember. It was like I was a little kid. I think.
You were. Yeah, I mean, I was a little kid. So, man, but that was a big deal.
It was a big deal, and it became the most visited McDonald's, I think, in the country, maybe even beyond that. It was the old pharmacist. I cannot remember his name. His pharmacy was in the Henry Clay Shopping Center.
Yeah.
He owned that McDonald's.
Oh, yeah, Tom Bishop.
Yes, and he killed it.
Yeah.
He had no idea what an investment that was.
His family still owns both of the McDonald's in Ashland.
Yeah, my kids the other day asked me, why are there two McDonald's so close together? I'm like, because a lot of people still go to them.
Right. Yeah, the one in town was more for the town folk, and the one on 95 was for the travelers.
But back in the day, we had to go to the one by 95.
Yes, but before that, I think the closest you could get to a fast food restaurant was down at Azalea Mall.
Yeah, before Azalea Mall got demolished.
Right.
There's a Burger King right there.
Burger Chef and Jeff.
Oh, Burger Chef, that's right. It was a Burger Chef.
Burger Chef and Jeff, man. Yeah, so.
And then, but beyond that, Burger Chef, I mean, where'd you go?
Nowhere.
Now, we did have a sub shop in town.
Did we?
Yeah, right across from Cross Brothers, right across where Iron Horse is now.
Yeah, the substation.
Subjunction, I think.
Subjunction, yeah.
But outside of that, where were you going to go?
Nowhere.
So when the guys came to town, you were riding bikes around, so preteen stuff before y'all were going out to have a couple drinks as a pregame. What were y'all doing?
We had neighborhood kids, and we would just get together every day. Pretty much, and like play football, play baseball, usually right across the street from my house, which was right by the science building. That was a good football field right there. So we played a lot of football there. A little farther back, outside of between the science building and the library, there's a nice little baseball diamond.
Oh yeah,
back there.
Yeah.
So we played baseball back there, wiffle ball, whatever you would call it. Boys, girls, it was. I think if we were all in, there were usually about 10 of us.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so we play hide and seek in the science building.
You could just get in the science building, no
problem.
Oh,
yeah.
Could you get in the lab?
Yeah. Sometimes.
People weren't too worried about it.
No. And somebody would run us off, maybe eventually.
So you grew up on Caroline. Was the house next to the president's house or a couple doors down?
It was a couple doors down. It was 2 doors down, closer to the fountain from the president's house.
Oh, okay.
So west.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So you were between a lot of structures for the college and the president's house.
Yes.
You were basically on campus.
Yes. I went to Randolph-Macon for a year, and I lived on campus. I would have been closer to my classes if I lived at home.
Which doors are you in?
I was in Moreland, which is one of the...
it's the twins.
Twins, yeah.
Yeah, they were built back in the 70s.
The one on the south one.
Okay, yeah.
So
I stayed in those doors for the basketball camp.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did for soccer.
Those camps were awesome.
Yeah.
And you're there with college kids? It was amazing.
Right, and those college players, I mean, I know as kids, those college players were like a big deal.
6'4" guy that could hit a jumper during a game. That guy's amazing.
Right. So I remember Dad, we'd get back in the locker room or something and just kind of like looking around all wide-eyed at these big guys. So walk around with towels on or nothing on, and you're like, just crazy.
So you were a big soccer guy.
I was, yes.
From a young age? Because soccer wasn't really a thing.
Soccer was the way we played soccer. I went to Hanover Academy.
Okay.
For elementary school. So we would play soccer. I have air quotes going there, and it was really just scrum ball.
I was going to say, did you play behind the school? There wasn't a whole lot of. Was there enough space back there?
Oh, a ton of space.
Oh, really?
Tons.
Okay.
Yeah. And we would play scrum ball, so it was really just a pack of people in the ball, But we had goals and stuff, and so when we got to Liberty,
what grade did you go to Liberty?
eighth.
So you did K through 7 at Hanover Academy, and then back then
Liberty was
8 and
9. 8
right.
9. Yeah. So when we went to Liberty, we it was pretty much at Patrick Henry if you tried out for soccer, you were on the team. Because there just weren't that many people.
Was Santos the coach?
Santos was the coach, absolutely. But places like Douglas Freeman would have 150 kids.
Oh yeah,
trying out for soccer,
and their best 20% would make the team.
Right. And so, when we started playing, we played in the winter. Okay,
really?
Yes,
outside
in the winter. I mean, it'd be 30 degrees, and we're playing soccer.
Are you playing on the football field?
Yes,
because you had to.
We had to.
Yeah.
And I think a couple years later, it got moved to the spring.
Okay.
As a spring sport. But yeah, man, you'd catch a ball in the thigh,
or any part of your body,
at 30 degrees or below, and you'd see a lot of people wearing full sweats with their uniform over top of their sweats. So
it's not the way soccer was meant to be played. I don't think.
No, but yeah, I'm better with my feet than my hands. I mean, Silent Rob and I over here coach basketball, and he'll tell you I don't know squat about basketball.
They're actually similar sports in some ways.
I'm the rah-rah coach. Okay, he's the X and O's. So I just would do what he told me to do. And that's the way things worked. I mean, because if my kids were playing a sport, I was coaching because I was going to be there anyway.
Right.
So
and you like to be involved.
And I like to be involved, and I love working with the kids and everything like that. So, yeah, I was more. I played a little football for the Vikings growing up.
Okay, sure. I mean, that was a rite of passage for a lot of kids.
That's right. Didn't play much basketball at all. I just never had any interest in it.
Can we go back to football?
Yeah.
Vikings football, when I was coming up, and I didn't know any better. I was 8 years old when I started playing. I don't think anybody could play anything until they were 8.
Yeah.
And the coaches were yelling and cussing.
Oh my God.
And it was just brutal. And I guess I didn't think much of it at the time, but I'm like, I guess this is just what we do.
Right.
And I'm playing with guys like twice my size, and we're just lining up, running into each other. I'm like,
right.
I guess I'm supposed to hurt real bad in these parts of my body, but it was. I'll never forget those teams.
Oh yeah. Oklahoma drills.
Oh my gosh.
And
those are not allowed for small kids in football anymore. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean it was. But you're right. I mean those guys. There was no filter on those coaches.
And the parents didn't say anything?
No, parents didn't say anything. But the funny thing is, playing football, when I played football for Ashland, Ted Schubert and I played together, and we were the biggest guys on the team at the time. So we peaked early. Everybody grew taller than he and I did. But we played line, and had a great time. I do remember the coaches. I remember getting yelled at, but the same kind of thing. You
didn't think anything of it.
It's just what they did,
yeah.
And then,
I think that toughness was better for us.
I can't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think. We could talk for hours about. Participation trophies and all that kind of stuff, and but I think with rec, what I tried to do with rec sports when our kids were growing up, when you're playing a rec sport, baseball, basketball, everybody gets the same amount of playing time.
Yeah,
everybody plays,
and it should be that way for rec.
And but you'd have parents who were like, "Why are you putting them in? Why are you putting that kid in?"
Because Billy needs the same opportunity that your kid does.
And the only time we wouldn't put somebody, like in baseball, we wouldn't put somebody on first base who couldn't catch.
Right.
Because we were just going to.
It's not fun for anyone.
No, we're just going to end their baseball career, or third base. Those two you didn't put anybody in. But I usually drafted for parents versus kids.
Nice.
So, and when we had our lineup made, we stuck with it. If the game was close, we didn't take Billy out and put somebody else in.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. I had a ton of fun doing that. And you see those kids now, and one, you realize how old you are. But you also see how they've grown up and become good people, and hopefully you had some part of that.
And for a lot of those kids, you gave them opportunities that they'll never understand or appreciate, but you did the right thing.
And I tell you, the perfect example of that. Were you on the Rays with me? I'm not sure if I don't think.
All right, Silent Rob is speaking.
Silent Rob just spoke. Sorry, I made him break his silence.
I do want to break in on a couple of these things.
Come on, brother.
Yeah, help yourself.
There's the mic.
We had, I drafted. This is a Little League Baseball, Ashland Little League Baseball drama. We were in the draft. I had been coaching the president's son at the time, all through, T-ball, kid pitch. No, this was kid pitch. So all through T-ball and everything. And all of a sudden, one of the coaches picks her husband as an assistant. So the deal was, you name your assistants, those kids come off the table.
It's a twofer. Yeah.
Right. So this coach picks the two best kids' dads as his assistant coaches. And this one, the president's husband had never coached. And I looked at her and said, when did he start coaching? Okay. So anyway,
it's fairly competitive. It's weirdly competitive.
Yeah. And so long story short, they had a loaded team. We played them the first game of the year, and we got 5 runs every inning. Okay, we had to play them 4 more times.
How old were the kids?
It was machine pitch, so they were like 8 and 9, and we get back, we go out to the outfield. They're all dragging their bags, just. And I said, boys, I got bad news. I said, we got to play those guys 4 more times. I said, but the good news is every time we play them, we're going to shrink the deficit.
We're going to do better.
We're going to do better.
Yeah.
Can't do much worse. I mean, we were 5 runs every inning.
The second game, we have to do better.
Right. So, long story short, we got better, and we play our kids everywhere. We play them infield, we play them outfield. They just played the same kids in the infield and the same kids in the outfield. Okay? Well, by the end of the season, when the kids could hit the ball out of the infield, the outfielders didn't know what to do with it.
Because they hadn't seen balls out there.
Because they hadn't seen balls out there. So, last game of the season, okay, they were undefeated. We were making a run. We had our rally caps on. And one of their coaches, the ball kind of drifted over to the dugout. It was still live. And he picked up the ball. And I went, and the ump called time. We got to advance a base. I think we got a run. So we were like, we were 1 run away from, and we didn't win. But we did.
Really close. Yeah, absolutely.
But we did. And we made them sweat.
Yeah.
And
brilliant.
And but that's a story I love to tell. I think also in T-ball, I remember looking, because T-ball's just a mess. They're building sandcastles and stuff.
It's like 4-year-olds playing soccer.
Yeah.
Chasing flowers.
You're herding cats, man. And I remember looking around one inning, and everybody had their shirt tucked in. They had their hat on straight, and they were looking at the plate. And I was like, my job here is done.
Yeah.
So
that's a huge accomplishment.
Now, was it like that every time? No. But, small victories. But
for T-ball in particular.
For T-ball.
Yeah, it's weird. I coached a lot of basketball for my kids, and I actually coached before I had kids. And so I went through a lot of drafts, and I got to watch these parents behave in certain ways. I'm like, I don't think you're setting the right example for your kids, but okay, you do you. And what ended up happening is these other coaches would pick their kids' friends to be on their teams. And I just picked who I thought was going to be good.
Right.
We killed everybody that way. The daddy ball thing, it was just a weird phenomenon back in the day because I wasn't a parent. I had no allegiances. I'm just going to pick.
You're just somebody volunteering to coach.
Yeah. I'm not trying to make my son happy. I'm
right.
I'm trying to have a good basketball team.
Right.
And I think we played everybody. Maybe we didn't. I remember growing up playing basketball. I'm looking at Silent Rob when I say this too. Like if you weren't very good when I played basketball in rec. You didn't get to play.
Yeah, you didn't play.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a good change. That's a change for the better. The participation trophy stuff that you're talking about in the 90s and the early 2000s, that's not good for anybody.
No. Yeah. So at some point, people need to learn some hard lessons.
I have a firm belief that, and look, I'm not going to tell other people how to raise their kids, right. and I'm not perfect as a parent, but one of my jobs as a parent is to help my kids be independent.
Yep.
And that sometimes means they're going to have to go through some tough stuff and get scarred up a little bit, and that's going to ultimately make them a better citizen, a better person, a better spouse, whatever.
Right. And that's one of the things my dad would do probably. He would give us enough rope to hang ourselves.
Yeah. And you learned.
And when we did, he'd pick you up, he'd brush you off, he'd never tell you I told you so. Because we already knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You figured it out.
We figured it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that's really, and I'm struggling with it too as a parent. You're talking about the independence. I think we've been, very supportive parents. I'd like to think really good parents. But it is tough to cut that cord.
It's hard.
And I think a lot of families struggle with it. And, the minute George graduated from college and got a job, I said, okay, you need to start paying for some things now. So, because you're going to have to eventually. So, but
yeah, because you don't want him living in your house when he's 30 something.
No.
Yeah. No. All right. You were talking about soccer earlier, and I get that Hanover Academy was a unique experience because if you were public schools back then, you weren't playing soccer. It wasn't an option. There was no rec league back then, none of that.
No.
Did you play with Zach Kennedy?
Yes. Zach was, he's your cousin.
He's my first cousin.
Your first cousin. God rest his soul.
Yeah.
Zach was a few years older than me.
He's 5 years older than me, so he might have been a year or two older than
year or two older than me. But yeah, Zach was a blast. He was fun.
Was he good at soccer?
Yeah, he was. He had a leg.
Yeah.
So Ted and I, we were on JV, but I think in our 9th grade year, while we were still at Liberty, we traveled and played with varsity.
Yeah.
And so, got to spend a lot of good time with Zach, and actually played with him some. After high school, we'd have pickup games and stuff like that, and before he passed. I forgot about that connection.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great guy. Love Zach.
Oh, super nice guy. He was awesome at soccer.
He was fun.
He was a ton of fun.
He was a ton of fun. You were going to have if you were going to be with Zach, you were going to have a good time.
You were going to smile.
Yeah.
You were going to do a lot of smiling. One of my best memories of Zach was we were in my backyard, and my oldest cousin, Zach's older brother, was the quarterback, all-time quarterback, and Zach and I were just going back and forth. And Zach was 4.5, 5 years older than me. I was maybe 7 and he was 12 kind of thing. And he would get the ball on a handoff, and he would run me over. And as he's running me over, he would just go, Zonka. And I knew as soon as he started to say the name, I'm like, I'm about to get run over.
Right. He's going to give you that forearm shiver in the chest and take you down. Yeah. But yeah, he was very competitive, great teammate, just a good dude.
What are your recollections of Hanover Academy besides scrum soccer?
A lot of great. I still have so many of my closest friends I went to Hanover Academy with. Ted, Carter, Flippo.
Oh, I didn't realize they went to Hanover Academy.
Yeah, they went to Hanover Academy too. Ray Hicks, David Knighton, Scott Funk, Hugh, Campbell.
All those guys went to Hanover Academy?
Oh, yeah, man.
Oh, I had no idea.
There were a ton of us that went there. And Hanover Academy was great. I mean, it was, obviously it was private. It was all white. It was created because of segregation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's how it got created.
Okay.
But I didn't,
The history is the history.
The history is the history.
And you weren't thinking about it when you were a kid.
No. And I didn't know why I was there. I was told I was there because the Hanover schools did not have a structured reading program. So that's why I was told I was there. And I think that's true because my parents weren't, they weren't racist or anything like that. So, and both my sisters went there, my cousins went there. So I just was like, this is what we do. But great time. I mean, we had big classes, 30 plus kids usually.
Really?
Sometimes in my grade we'd have 2. They'd be so large. I'm not sure how the place has stayed open, but it's remained open today. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think it sheltered me, obviously, from a lot of things. I mean, I played Little League with Ashland Vikings and stuff like that. So I got to meet people in the public schools.
Right.
But when I went to Liberty, man,
it was an eye opener.
It was a culture shock. I mean, because I was, we had a single hallway, we had a shotgun hallway. That was it. And you go to Liberty, and I wasn't concerned about the race stuff there, and the different what's the word I'm looking for? Eclectic collection of people.
Because it was eclectic. You had
you had everything.
People, rural people, town people, people of different
colors.
Skin colors.
Yeah. So I wasn't worried about that. I was worried about, am I going to remember how to get to class? Am I going to, remember what hallway I'm on? But one of the things that really stuck with me, and Santos was my homeroom teacher. Coach Santos was my homeroom teacher in 8th grade. Was I walked in, and there was a guy sitting in there, a student with a beard, thicker than mine right now.
Yeah.
And he was white. And I was like, oh, my God. How old is that guy?
Is he another teacher?
And he's in 8th grade. Apparently he was let back a few times. But
there was a lot of
But
that
he was a nice guy.
Sure.
But I was just like, oh, my.
Just not the most academically inclined, maybe.
Right. But he was a great guy.
Yeah, I went to Liberty in 7th grade. It was the first year they had 7th grade there, and I went to Gandy 4th through 6th, Henry Clay. So I went through public schools, and Liberty was a shock for me coming from public schools because it's the first time I saw serious fighting.
Oh yeah.
Fighting was crazy. I'm like, they're trying to kill each other.
Right.
I'm pretty sure my mom doesn't know that I'm witnessing this right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the best fight I saw at Patrick Henry was a girl fight, man. That was.
Oh yeah.
Whoo. They were pulling clumps of hair out.
Yeah, they definitely wanted to hurt each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but yeah, no, you're right. And I think now that it's, what is it now? 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Liberty 6th, 7th, and 8th, correct?
Yeah.
It's not junior high anymore. It's middle school.
It's middle school.
Yeah.
So a lot of that fight, I don't know how much, I'm sure it still goes on. I mean, both my boys went there. There's still a lot of, middle school is a scary time. It's a tough time for kids.
Their bodies are changing. Yeah. It affects their brains.
And everybody's changing differently. And so.
And every kid's different. They all have their own personalities.
Yeah.
Sometimes they mesh, sometimes they don't mesh. Even within a house, sometimes they don't mesh.
Right.
I think the running thing about middle school is they basically say if you can get through middle school, you'll be fine in high school.
Yeah.
It's just such a tough time right now for those
kids.
Yeah.
But I think it's true. It's been true probably for a long, long time, right?
Yeah, I didn't mean just now. Yeah, I mean it's always been
always been
that time frame. I think
it was awkward for me.
Yep.
I know that. So all right. So I didn't realize you were K through 7 Hanover Academy. You told me you went to Hanover Academy. I didn't realize it was the whole time.
Yes.
So what was the plan? Was there a private school option after 7th grade?
We did. We went. A group of us went and visited collegiate.
Okay.
But
that's like 45 minutes away.
Yeah. But I didn't want to.
35. Sorry, Silent Rob went to collegiate.
Yeah.
And he made the face. How long did it take, Rob?
I don't know.
We'll go with 30, 35.
There's just not an easy way to get there.
And it's not like a 10-minute quick little drive.
Right.
So,
but my sisters went to Liberty and Patrick Henry. My mom and dad were still together then, and mom wanted me to go to private school, but it just didn't.
Yeah.
Just wasn't in the cards. I don't really remember why. I wanted to go where my friends were going, so I ended up there.
I mean, there's good and bad in either.
Yeah. Had a great experience, and with at Liberty and Patrick Henry. It was fun.
Patrick Henry, what are the top 2 or 3 things that pop in your head when you think about going to school at Patrick Henry?
Because when I went, it was open campus.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's all I remember. Is it closed now? They put walls up in that.
Yeah, it's all closed.
It was an old '60s sort of construction or architecture back in the day.
Well, the girls was, I mean,
sure,
maturity.
It's like
You're a young boy.
5 years different,
right? Yeah. I mean, I just remember I fell in love quite a few times, unbeknownst to them.
Yeah, they had no idea.
This episode is brought to you by Origin Beer Lab. Origin is a sister company of Center of the Universe Brewing, built for research, development, and teachings of all things beer. Find more info at ashlandvirginia.com.
I think my senior year, I loved my senior year. That was a lot of fun. I would like to relive my senior year. Actually, when you become an adult and you start adulting, you're like, man, I'd like to have that. I'd like to have that year again.
Yeah, especially with what I know now.
Right. But I remember one of the things that was fun, or always a experience, was the fight over the jukebox. What song was going to be played? Was it going to be an Alabama song, or was it going to be the Vapors, or Turning Japanese? And
where was the jukebox?
The jukebox was in the cafeteria.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, see, I mean,
sorry, I didn't say that. But.
No, it's all good because Rob and I didn't go to Patrick Henry.
Right.
Why did they have a jukebox in the cafeteria?
It's just people would go and put songs on, and I think Ramsey Longacre would always try to piss the rednecks off, and he'd put on something like
I've seen
the Vapors or something like that, and some redneck would go and pull the plug or something like that.
I haven't seen Ramsey forever, but that seems like a Ramsey movie.
Yeah. I mean, I learned. Music was everything at the Longacre house. I mean, Led Zeppelin, The Who, Yes. There's just learned a lot of great things from that. So yeah, Ramsey was always pushing the envelope on music, and I always joked about Patrick Henry. It was a third white, a third black, and a third redneck.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, that's what it was. So, and it was fun. I mean, they were. I mean, I talked to my sisters about. My sisters were in high school when Roots came out, so there was a lot of tension then.
A lot of eyes being opened for a lot of different folks.
Yeah. So, but we all got along, and I think listening to one of your podcasts, it was played football, not Buck, but
Donnie.
Yeah.
Was it Donnie?
Donnie.
Yeah.
Donnie said something that really stuck with me. I mean, I think you were talking to him about how y'all played together and stuff like that, and the fact that we grew up together. And while you guys didn't go to Liberty and Patrick Henry, he said something like, "We're all brothers."
Yeah,
and it is so true.
He's absolutely right.
He was absolutely right. And Donnie Morris, and that was an interesting. I really enjoyed that.
Donnie was my hero. He was only a year older than me, but he was my hero.
Oh yeah, he was a stud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's my hero he was a stud on the athletic fields or courts or whatever, but he was a really nice guy too. And he kind of looked out for everybody. Yeah. Unless you were doing an Oklahoma drill with him and he was going to run you over.
He was going to run you over. Yeah. He was going to do what he had to do.
Yeah, that's what the coach told him to do. Yeah.
Right.
Like he did to Paul.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is that connection with Patrick Henry and the people that went there. So it was good.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there are lots of other schools across the country that have a third, like you described. Yeah. But I don't know any of them, and it feels I know plenty of people that experienced the south side of Richmond or the city of Richmond or the west end of Richmond, and there's not a lot of schools that can talk about the experience that folks had at Patrick Henry, or just growing up in Ashland for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was eclectic, and you don't get that. I don't think you get that with any other school in the county right now as much as it is at Patrick Henry, just because we've got the whole western part of the county.
Yeah. And the town of Ashland.
So, but it's a special place. It's a special place. Our boys both had great experiences there. So no complaints.
Well, the three of us have stayed basically
Yeah.
around Ashland or in Ashland.
Yeah, and a lot of my close friends that I grew up with have stayed close. Everybody kind of, I think that was something that you guys mentioned on your Growing Up in Ashland podcast, was everybody comes back.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, I know you guys, you have this experience too. There are a lot of people that don't have any contact with people they grew up with anymore.
Yeah, it's strange.
And, they wanted to get as far away from where they grew up as possible. They're just, you talk about your friendships and your relationships with people and how long you've known them, and they're like, wow, that's really cool. That's really neat. It's like, well,
what you just said.
It's normal for me.
It's unusual for a lot of people, though.
It's a foreign concept to me, as you talk about, of like moving away and not keeping in touch. I mean, I kind of say one of the luckiest things I have in my life, besides my family, is the fact that I still hang out with the guys I've hung out. I mean, we're approaching 50 years of friendship on all these. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
I've got two text groups that I have. One of them is all is 5 guys that we're in the same grade. And went to Hanover Academy all through school together, and we're still close, and we're all here. The other one is probably my closest friends from college. A couple of them I grew up with too, but they're fraternity brothers and stuff like that I'm still close with. But and the 2 that are in that group, they live around here. Yeah. So I think probably my 2 closest friends that don't live here anymore are Scott Funk, who's in outside of Dallas now, and Ramsey, who's in Pittsburgh.
And Scott is Katie's brother?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. He was with the Secret Service and was on both Bush details. Oh, so that's what took him to Texas.
Okay.
And, he's retired now. But
you still keep in touch?
Yeah. My wife and I are his oldest child's godparents, and she just had a baby, so we're great godparents. And actually, our other goddaughter is Carter and Beverly Flippo's oldest daughter, and she had a baby as well.
Wow!
So
very cool.
Yeah.
So you're not a grandfather yet, but you are a great godfather.
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm ready. I'm looking forward to that day, but I'm also willing to wait a little while.
All right. So you had mentioned, I'm totally willing to wait too. Even though the notion of grandkids would be kind of cool, but it's a little early.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that.
So Randolph-Macon for your freshman year, and then where'd you go after that?
Well, I left Macon. I went there. I was gonna play soccer and decided not to. I had a job at Kings Dominion and had a really good job making money. Really liked making money. Didn't like going to class. So I left, and actually Lee Hopkins' father, Bob was my counselor.
Okay.
All right, and so
he was the registrar too.
He was. Yeah. And he was my guidance or my academic advisor. And I think after they had May term, now they call it Jan term because where you only take one class and you take it every day.
They do this 3 or 4 week thing in January.
Yeah. But they used to do it in May, and it was just a free for all.
Yeah, nobody's really that serious.
So I finished my first year. My GPA was 1.25. All right.
Hey, that's passing.
Yeah, I was passing, and I was talking to Bob, and I said, I think I'm going to take a break. And he said, I think that's a good idea.
Was it just about the GPA, or was there something else going on?
No, it's just the GPA, and so I took a year off and worked at Kings Dominion. Continued to work there. I was assistant manager of entertainment, and Silent Rob worked there too. We worked there together a little bit. He was in security, and I realized I had a great job, was making money, but I was living at home, of course. Bought a car and realized I'm not going to get much farther here without a college education. So I went back to VCU part-time until my grades were better, and they accepted me as a full student, and I graduated from VCU.
What'd you study?
Safety and Risk Administration.
Okay.
Actually. So
you're kind of still doing that.
I am still doing that. Yeah.
What did you plan? What was your idea majoring in that? What were you going to do after school?
Well, well, first I was struggling to find my major. I was looking.
You and most kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
I changed my major in my mind probably 7 times, and I was in the administration of justice program because I just and my roommate at the time, who grew up here, Scott Mallory, who's still one of my best friends, said, hey, they just started a new major in our school called Safety and Risk Administration. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll go talk to somebody about it. Well, I don't know. A friend of mine, a guy I went to high school with, Curtis Bolts. Do you remember that name?
Sure. Passed away way too early.
Yeah. He was killed in an industrial accident at Bear Island.
Yep.
So that had just happened. And, I don't know the whole story, but from what I understand, whatever Curtis was doing, management knew about it and they didn't try to correct it or make any changes.
And OSHA wasn't super powerful back then.
Right. So I went in and talked to the advisor, and it just clicked. It's like, oh, this seems pretty cool. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I think I ended up taking a risk and insurance class in the business school, and I loved it. So that kind of took me the insurance route.
What was it about risk and insurance that was interesting to you or captivated you?
Captivated me. It was really the broadness of it and the exposure to multiple types of, or many types of operations, businesses, things like that.
So breadth was part of it.
Breadth was part of it. I could have gone to work for a company as a safety director, but I would have been just at that location doing that one thing. With insurance, I was able to see multiple different types of operations and companies, and maybe decide to choose one and go that route, or
experience a bunch of them and make a decision.
And make a decision. So that was my plan. But I just never left. I got a job with Hanover Insurance doing risk control, and then I went to Alexander & Alexander, which was an insurance broker. I realized when I was working for Hanover Insurance, which has nothing to do with Hanover County.
Well, okay. Is it like Hanover, Pennsylvania?
No, it's a national insurance company. They were based in Boston, right outside of Boston, in Worcester, Mass. So I worked for them and realized pretty quickly this is not where I want to stay. I just did not like that role. I was basically going out and making sure the agents didn't lie to us about what what the account did, and that kind of thing. So I was like, I don't like that. And so I wanted to get with a broker, and my dad, hooked me up with a couple. So he was at A.H. Robbins, and he was responsible for insurance at A.H. Robbins. So he hooked me up with his broker relationship and let me talk to some brokerage risk control safety folks. And they said, oh, yeah, you need at least 10 years with a carrier before you can come over here. And so I left. I mean, they were great. Okay, great guys. But I left there. I said, I am not working for a carrier for 10 years. There's no way.
Sounds brutal.
Yeah. So I had a colleague or a guy I went to college with who was at A&A. They had an opening, and it just clicked. And I was there for a couple of years. That's when I worked with the Municipal League. And one of somebody that I really looked up to, our sales leader at A&A, left and went to work for a company called Rutherford Insurance. And he left. I was talking to him about maybe getting into sales because I thought I might want to try that or do that.
Yeah.
And he, after about a year, Rutherford called me because they wanted to start a risk control department. They called me, and I talked to them, and it clicked. And 29 years later, here I am.
Oh,
so,
wow. Okay.
So I've got a group of almost 27 people now that I work with, and we do risk control, safety, loss prevention, whatever you want to call it, and claims consultation with our clients. So the nice thing about it is we're able to do things that the client wants us to do and help them. Sometimes we have to be real with them and say, you shouldn't do that.
It's a really bad idea.
That's a really bad idea, and here's what I think you should do. But you're able to have close relationships with the decision makers and things like that. it's just been a great company, very entrepreneurial. They hire good, well, with the exception of me probably, they hire good people and let them do their job. And
which is nice.
It's really nice. You're not micromanaged. You're not, if you need to be micromanaged, you're not a good fit.
Yeah, it's time to do something else. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I only looked at the wanted ads like once while I was there.
Wow.
And, you have bad days and you're wondering stuff, and then you talk to somebody else and hear what they're dealing with at work, and you're like, I got nothing going on.
It's all about perspective.
It's all about perspective. So, it's been great. And my son George just applied for a job there, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
So,
yeah, Rutherford, is it local?
Yes, it was local. It was started in Roanoke, and we had offices in Richmond, Roanoke, Alexandria, Virginia Beach, Charlotte, and Raleigh at the time. And then we were acquired by Marsh & McLennan Agency. Okay. 12 years ago, I think now, or 12 years ago. And we're the Mid-Atlantic hub. Okay. For MMA, not mixed martial arts, but Marsh & McLennan Agency. And we've made other acquisitions to become part of our group. So, yeah.
And the work is for other businesses.
Yes, we do commercial insurance. We do benefits, property casualty, bonds. We also do personal lines, or private client that we call it, and most of it's high value or high wealth private clients. So you and I, the three of us, aren't the primary people they're looking for.
I mean, they would be nice to us, but maybe not form a business relationship with us.
Right. So they want multiple homes, farms, things like that.
Big tickets, or at least total of some real money. Yeah.
They handle my insurance, but that's just because I work there.
If you left, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
All right. Did you grow up a Washington football team, or Commanders, or whatever they're called now?
I did. My dad was a Skins fan, diehard Skins fan. Would write letters to. I think he wrote a letter to Joe Gibbs one time and said, "Y'all stunk so bad I could smell you in Ashland."
If only your dad knew how bad they'd become.
Oh my God, yeah, it's just a train. So in my heart, I'm still.
It's hard though.
It's hard. We need a new owner.
Desperately.
So they're still in my heart. I'm still watching them.
Well, growing up, they were good for a lot of your childhood and early adulthood.
Yeah, but I've my son George, who's a sports junkie, he latched on to the Buffalo Bills before they got good. Before the way they are now
That's the rule of liking a team. You can't like them just because they're good now.
Right, and he was. It's really a neat story. He was. My sister Lisa, her husband passed. Probably 6-7 years ago now, and he was from Buffalo, and so George was like, "I'm looking. I need a team," and he's like, "You know what? I'm going to start rooting for the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres to honor Uncle Mark."
That's cool.
And he stuck with it. It's hard being a Sabres fan. They're not real good. But
they were okay maybe 15, 20 years ago. But
so he's always got another team that he's also rooting for. But we've gone to a couple Bills games, and it's a neat environment.
Oh, that's cool that you've been up there.
Yeah, I took him, I think, for his 21st birthday.
They are nuts up there.
Oh yeah, they're crazy.
Like they do the table
dives.
Yeah.
Their fan base is pretty awesome.
Yeah, they are. But I tell you, the Bills Mafia, but they also donate. They donate a lot of money to charities, not just Buffalo Bills related charities, but I forget. Somebody's mother passed away on a competing, one of their rivals, and they made a huge donation to whatever the foundation was. So they're crazy, but they're also very
big hearts. It's nice to see them be relevant again.
Yeah.
I hope they're good for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
nobody's good for that long. I mean, if you're good for 10 years, you're really, really lucky.
Yep.
So I think they've got another 8 or 9 years. And their head coach right now is a guy who went to William & Mary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. 2
William & Mary guys head coaching in the NFL. I mean, who?
And that's the other team I've kind of adopted, the Steelers. And I'll tell you.
That's fine.
No, I have three of my best friends are hardcore Steelers fans, and
because we grew up when the Steelers were killing it.
Yes, and my dad hated the Steelers, man.
Much like I hated the Steelers.
Hated them, couldn't stand them. So it was really tough for me to get over that childhood hate that existed in our house. For he called Terry Bradshaw the Crown Prince of Dumb. That was his title for him. But anyway, they are diehard Steelers fans, and they go up every year for a game. And they invited me to go one time, and I went and had a good time. And then I think they invited me.
The fans are great.
The fans are great. It's a great place to see a game.
Yeah.
I mean, the bars, everything downtown.
Pittsburgh's done it right.
Yes. FedEx Field sucks.
Yeah.
Or whatever it's called now.
Yeah. Wherever. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's horrible. Well, one year I went, we lost to the Browns, and they on their trips up to that point they hadn't lost, so they said you can't come anymore. What? Yeah,
and they were serious.
They were serious. They said you can't come anymore. I'm like, that's fine.
Well,
okay.
To the Browns no less.
Right, to the Browns no less, and it was right after. It was the year that the Browns restarted. Okay, so after
the old ones became the Ravens.
The Ravens, and then they reformed in Cleveland. So even worse, and so about 10 years later, they lost another game on a trip. So they said, "All right, you can come back now. It's not just you."
Right.
So,
that's hilarious.
So we have a good time.
So you're a, sort of a Steelers fan. So
Loose.
Yeah, no, I get
respect the organization.
No, you and I have similar experiences.
Right.
I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and I grew up with them. They were okay in the late 70s, early 80s, and then they got really bad for a really long time, and they were so bad for so long. I'm like, I'm going to have a second favorite team that I'm going to follow too, just because I want my team to win occasionally. And so I became a Dolphins fan for a few minutes.
Okay.
And I still pull for them, but they're abysmal now. But the Bucs are okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least as long as Tom Brady doesn't retire.
But I like the Steelers organization. Got a lot of respect for the Rooney family.
Yeah.
And I like the Bills. I like the Bills organization too.
Who was the head coach of the Steelers when you were a little kid?
Chuck Noll.
And there have only been 2 other coaches since Noll.
Yep.
Think about that.
It's amazing.
3 coaches in the last 50 years, basically.
Yeah.
60, almost 60 probably.
Yeah.
He probably started in the early to mid 60s. Something like that. All right, I'm going to ask you a question that you probably know is coming.
Okay.
So it's the talk show question?
Yeah.
All right, so
I've been preparing for this.
All right, good. You're one of a few that has actually listened to an entire episode that has heard the question at the end. So you know the question. But for our listening audience that may not have heard this, for all 6 of you that haven't heard this, you're a talk show host, one night only or one day only. You get to invite whoever you want. Except that one has to be male, one has to be female, and one musical. If you are a big stand-up comedy fan, you can also have a comedian on. They can be alive or dead. They can be related to you or not. The people you know, not know, famous, not famous. It's
this is a tough one. So first, I'm going to break the rules a little bit.
Okay.
I need a co-host.
Nice. Okay. This is the first time a guest has asked for a co-host.
And my co-host is going to be my dad.
Nice. Okay.
So that we can have a beer or 2 together
and be playful with each other
and talk and just shoot the shit.
You just blew my mind a little bit, right? That was nice.
Yeah. So secondly, I would like to invite my mother's father, who was admiral in the Navy.
Okay.
Led the naval forces on Utah Beach during D-Day.
Oh, wow.
I never met him. He died. He died in the war. Committed suicide, unfortunately.
Wow, gosh.
But so I'd love to have him on so that I could talk to him and get to know him.
No, that's amazing.
So
it's so sad too.
Yeah. I mean, and it was battle fatigue. I mean, they said it was battle fatigue. I mean, there are a lot of stories going around, but he was the youngest admiral in the Navy at the time. But Don Moon, if the Google boy over there is looking it up.
The Google guy is all over.
Right. Or Stat Boy.
Okay. Is that your mom's maiden name, Moon?
Moon.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Female's going to be tough.
Hold on. Admiral Moon is the father-in-law of your co-host.
Yes.
Did they get along, or
they didn't know each other?
They never knew each other.
Yeah. So it
was before they got married.
Yeah. My mom was like 12 or 13 or something when he passed.
Oh.
So, yeah. So it'd be a good experience for him too.
Yeah.
Let's see. Female, maybe somebody like Rosa Parks.
Okay.
Just to.
I wanted to ask her how much did you have to rely on your internal fortitude to do what you did?
Because what she did took so much courage.
I don't think we can comprehend how much courage.
We can't. No, there's no way. There's no way we can't say what would be equivalent to that today to do that. I don't know.
I think her personal story, getting to know her character, would be amazing. She just seemed like a quiet, humble person.
Yep.
But that's her public image. Who actually knows?
Comedian.
I would tune in. I would absolutely tune in.
Yeah. Comedian. It's got to be Dave Chappelle. I love Dave Chappelle. He is an interesting cat.
Oh, he's so smart. He's so smart.
God, he's so smart. Just amazing person. Music. They're going to be musical acts.
Okay.
One is going to be AC/DC.
All right. Yeah.
Because they were my.
They can light up a stadium.
Yeah, they were my band growing up. Also like Tears for Fears, so I'd like to have them on.
How long did they stay together? It feels like maybe a 10, 15-year run kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually saw them a few years ago at the National.
Okay,
they got back together, and my wife Sharon bought tickets for us to go see them.
Are those guys brothers?
No,
they seem like brothers.
They're not.
Okay,
no,
all right.
No.
By the way, you just took yourself back to early mid-'80s with Tears for Fears.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And then probably somebody today that I would want on would be Parker McCullum. I don't know if you know who that is.
I don't know who that is.
It's more of it's a Texas country, kind of a rock country, kind of
good beat to it.
Good beat. It's not mainstream country or pop country,
which is refreshing.
Yeah. So, but he is on the radio a little bit. But I heard him. I think I heard him on a playlist called Texas. Don't mess with Texas. So that's how I learned about him.
Have you seen him in person?
I have not. I'd love to though. So
that's quite the show.
Yeah. I think it'd be big.
And your dad's co-hosting.
Yes,
you can't forget,
which will be interesting in itself.
Yeah, I don't know. You and your dad as co-hosts, you're gonna have to segue through some pretty tough segues. I think. Can you segue from Admiral Moon to Rosa, and then Rosa to Dave Chappelle?
Well, that would be an interesting segue. From what
Dave would love that.
Oh yeah,
I imagine. I've never met Dave. I don't know Dave, but
it's something that he would definitely embrace wholeheartedly.
He would love. He's very intellectually curious, and I think he would be fascinated by that interaction.
I really haven't thought about how the segues would go.
Well, we haven't recreated any of these, and we can't recreate yours for obvious reasons. But
right.
No, that's great. That's. Would you have come up with co-host, Dad, if you didn't have any time to prep? Because most people don't have any prep time.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have come up with co-host, but I think I would have wanted him.
Dad would have been there.
He would have been a guest.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about there. You can only have one of each, and I couldn't choose between my father and Admiral Moon. I mean, I could. I would have chosen my father.
Right.
But I was like, I want them both. So that's what I'm going to.
Well, it's your show.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I'm starting with a roadmap that you can adjust as you go.
Right.
All right, cool. All right, tell us about your family.
All right, so
beyond what you've already talked about.
Yeah. So my wife Sharon and I met at VCU. She's from the South Side, so I got her on the right side of the river.
Right. Well, I mean, eventually everybody figures it out.
Yeah. So we met there. We have two boys, and luckily she loved Ashland. So we moved.
I think she really loves it now. Right?
Oh, she does. She's all in.
Yeah,
she's all in. I mean, I'm Sharon Stiles' husband. Okay, that's the way it is now. She's not Rob Stiles' wife, so. But she's in the garden club and loves it. And I think I told the story. That's how we get to see your parents so much, which is so nice. But we were going to have your mom do the flowers for our wedding.
Yeah.
But we were married on April 17th, and that is Garden Week.
Yeah.
So now our anniversary is always.
I've asked my mom for certain things during Garden Week my entire life, and I get none of it
Nothing.
during Garden Week. Yeah.
The world stops during Garden Week.
Yeah.
So, and we have two great boys. George, who's 24, went to Virginia Tech.
Okay.
Ethan is almost 21. He'll be 21 at the end of August, and he's at VCU right now. He's taking some time off because COVID college
that's not fun.
It sucks.
Yeah, not fun is not strong enough.
Yeah. I mean, it just sucks. And I think he's also, I think this accelerated the process, but I think he's also trying to figure out, he's in the art school at VCU. And I think
which, by the way, is a top school in our country for
top
art.
school.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ethan,
top public school.
He does some amazing stuff.
Yeah, he's extremely talented.
Like what?
He's a sketcher. He draws.
Like pencil,
marker. I don't know, Copic markers. Those are the big art markers out there. He likes to draw characters. I mean, ever since he was a little boy, he had a journal. He had a little book, and he would draw in it. And he had some characters that evolved over time, and he developed a backstory for her. And
is that going to become something?
I don't know.
It'd be cool if it did.
It'd be cool. It'd be very cool. I hope so, because but I think he's trying to figure out if art is what he wants to do for a living. I think I think that's what he's struggling with right now. So I think he'll always do it, but I think if he sticks with it, he might get into teaching art education, which is funny because he says, "Yeah, he'd kill me if I said when he hears this, if he listens to this." He always thought art teachers were artists that couldn't make it as an artist. Okay,
there's maybe a little bit of truth,
and there may be. But he also realized how many of his art teachers inspired him to do things, and so that's what appeals to him. George majored in. They both graduated in 2020, in the heart of COVID.
Yeah, brutal.
Ethan graduated with Jack.
Same year my son graduated.
Yeah, it's just awful. So. They were robbed of some.
No pun intended for the two of you.
Yeah. They were robbed of some life experiences there. But George.
Let's tap into that a little bit more. The last 2 or 3 months of their high school years in public schools around here, and we go into mid-June. They had 3 months, just poof, and it's the last 3 months your senior year of high school.
Yep.
No prom. No shenanigans that happened your senior year, especially the last 2 or 3 months. And then your first year of college, you're away from your parents for the first time, and you're exploring all kinds of stuff. And you're learning a ton that has nothing to do with academics, and you end up sitting in your dorm room for a year.
Yep.
Just brutal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jack sat in his dorm room at Tech 21 to 22 hours a day the first semester he was there.
Yeah.
And he came home second semester because he couldn't.
Yeah.
He just kept taking online.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last 3 months was nothingness, and our experience. Jack didn't see Tech until we took him.
Wow.
Because we didn't have a visit.
Yeah.
Because
same for us.
They stopped.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Ethan was the same way. He lived in the dorm his first year. I didn't want to rob him of that dorm life, but it was the same thing. It was all online. He didn't even know the kids on his hall.
Yeah.
I mean. It was just so everything was so shut down, and he's in the art program. Okay, studios weren't open.
Yeah, and that's not learning either.
No, 75% of his classes were online for art, and I mean we were and the other thing I think I'm probably badmouth my alma mater here, but other public colleges were a little more open, and kids were especially the second year. sophomore year.
Yep.
For all of our boys.
Yeah.
A lot of them were open. Classes were meeting in person. Not at VCU. Not in the art program. It was 75% online, and we wrote a nastygram to my wife and I wrote a nastygram to the school, and their response was pitiful, and just that. Well, some kids really like online learning. Well, mine doesn't, and it sucks.
And most don't.
No, most don't.
Yeah.
So, and they
Especially
said,
in art.
yeah, they said the next semester was going to be more of the same. So he said he came home at Christmas. I don't think he realized how unhappy he was until he got home, and he's like, I'm not going back.
Doing it,
I was like, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I wouldn't want my kid going through 4 years of that.
No, so I'm not sure if he's going to go back this semester. We'll see. He's working up at Fin and Feather in Ashland now, but I'm thinking if he doesn't go back, that hopefully he'll try to find some type of job and something that he enjoys. Loves nature, loves animals, loves creatures, fish. That's what excites him.
He'll find his way.
Yeah. And George majored in sports media and analytics from Tech, and so thinking he wanted to get into broadcasting, get into sports and the broadcasting side of it. But of course, when he graduated, everything was shut down.
Right.
All sports were shut down.
Yeah.
And I think he also realized, both boys realized, maybe this isn't what I want to do. They thought they knew what they wanted to do since they were 12. And now they're actually in it, and they're like, I'm not sure if this is it or not. So, which is absolutely normal. Funny story about George, when he was 12, I think, I said, George, what are you going to do for a living? He goes, I'm going to be a professional baseball player. All right, cool.
Sounds easy enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
What's your backup plan? MBA.
Funny.
And I said, all right, cool. At least you got a backup plan.
At least he wasn't saying that when he was 18.
Yeah, so he's always been a sports junkie. All right, loves sports, loves does all the fantasy stuff with baseball, I don't know if he does basketball.
Basketball's weird for fantasy.
Yeah, football.
Football and baseball make a lot of sense.
Football and baseball, but he loves everything about it, but I just don't think he wants to be in it. He wants to be a fan. I don't think he wants to be part of
the actual work of it.
In the actual work of it, because then it kind of takes some of your fandom away.
Well, it's a job.
Yeah, it's a job, and so he's in the insurance area right now, working for a friend of ours, and that does a lot of back room work for physicians and general practitioners and stuff like that, and seems to enjoy it. So we'll see what happens there.
All right, Rob, I think I'm going to have you back on with two of your friends that you grew up with.
Okay.
And this may be putting you in an awkward position, so if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But if you did come back to talk about growing up in Ashland, and it's a little weird for you because a lot of the guys you grew up with didn't technically grow up in town, but they did spend some time in town. Mm-hmm. You have two people that you would have in mind, and you can just say yes, and you don't have to name them if you don't want to.
I need to think about it because I'm thinking about somebody who actually I didn't grow up with. He's my neighbor now.
Okay.
And he grew up in town, but he's a few years older than me. He would be a good.
Okay.
He's a great storyteller.
Well, I love it.
And he should have been a history teacher, but he's in financial planning. So that could be a good one. Not that the other ones wouldn't be, but let me think about that.
Okay.
And we can talk about it offline and see.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. Glad to do it. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah. Does this feel normal now that you finished it? Is this what you expected?
I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't really know what to expect.
You came in with no expectations.
No expectations.
Which is the best way to come.
Right.
Very cool. Well,
I was like, because my wife was like, "What are you going to talk about?" I'm like, "I have no idea."
And that didn't surprise your wife.
No. I said, "I don't have anything prepared. We're just going to go with the flow and see where it takes us."
It's just two or three guys talking.
You're right.
You got Silent Rob to come out, which is unusual.
Before I go, I do need to tell you a funny story. I think it's a funny story about how I met my wife, and you can.
No, it's great. No, yeah.
So I'm older. I'm 4.5 years older than she is, So we were at VCU. My fraternity little brother, was best friends with her brother.
Okay.
And so he introduced us, and we had a class together on Monday nights in the fall. What else comes on Monday nights in the fall?
The best thing of the week.
Yeah, Monday Night Football. So a fraternity brother of mine and I would usually sit through the first half of class, and then we'd leave to go watch Monday Night Football, and we'd say, hey, Sharon, can we get the notes from you? And of course she's like, sure. So anyway, so we had that class and everything, and got to know her that way. She was also dating one of our pledges at the time too. So, but then they broke up, and then they hadn't. I'm sorry. The spring, okay, I was president of the fraternity. I was out of office now, so I was working the door, and I was drinking. Didn't drink when I was president because I was on the hook in the event something happened.
Right.
So I was drinking. I was half in the bag or more, and Sharon comes to the door, and I hadn't seen her since class. And I went, Sharon, how you doing? She's like, great. We hugged, and I said, now that I don't have class with you, I don't have anybody to stare
at. Good line.
And she goes, you were staring at me? I thought I was staring at you.
Oh.
Boom. Rest is history.
There it is.
Yeah.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. So
that's a good story to end on.
Yeah.
So, and 2 kids later, and still happily married. And,
happily married, 29 years.
Yeah. Wow.
We've been married.
You better get this straight before we stop recording.
93. Yeah, 29 years.
There it is.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.